people who are wanting to explore new frontiers and get beyond the sort of singer-songwriter kind of thing.
Well, welcome everybody to this Prog chat. We have with us Moonletters from Seattle. I just did a written review actually of their recent album. Thank you from the future. Maybe you guys could just introduce yourself. You just mentioned your drummer couldn't make it.
Sure. I'm Michael True. I do the lead vocals in the group.
John Alday on keys.
Mike Murphy, bass.
Dave Webb, guitar.
Kelly Mines, who's not here, drums.
Okay.
We need like a stock photo of him to flash on the screen.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Kelly Mines, drums, Moonletters band, Seattle. You might find a picture of him.
Possibly.
Okay.
Some of the films he's produced.
That's right.
Anyways.
I've been listening to your recent album and I really love it. I think it's a fantastic album. How do you feel? Are you proud of the album?
Yeah.
I think so.
How do you think you're progressing from your last album then?
The approach was different this time, and we definitely, I don't know. I had an idea, or we had an idea, some of us had an idea that this album might be simpler and maybe we would be more straightforward with it. But instead, we managed to cram more around every edge, but in a tasteful way. So last time we probably put in stuff that might not have made it in this cut, but yeah, to me it's just there's a lot going on, and it sounds, even I listen to it and like I hear something new every once in a while and wonder if I just forgot about it, but there's a lot of stuff going on. We achieved a lot, I feel. It
was like in Star Trek, when the guy downstairs is like, that's it, I can't go any faster. And the captain's like, yeah, but you need to just go a little bit more. And I think that's really what the second album is all about.
Like from start to finish, from conception to, it's sending it off to the printers. How long did that take?
Well, it's tricky because we actually started writing this, how many years ago? It was pre-COVID. So we started writing the first song or two. We were actually playing live, as part of our set, way before the album actually was finished. So I think COVID gave us a pretty massive setback, I'm sure a lot of bands dealt with, and we ended up writing the majority of the material remotely, which is just a pretty excruciating process. Sending emails back and forth with bits and pieces that would have taken minutes to hash out in person. So I think from start to finish, if you count from the very beginning, what's it, 3?
You mean calendar wise?
Yeah, calendar wise.
Yeah, it's
3 years, something like that. 3 years, but with a grain of salt.
Yeah. It wouldn't take us that long in person. And also maybe that's why we had crammed so much stuff around and we had time to fit parts, or at least I did with my parts. We were writing our own parts to other, a member would contribute the bulk of a song or the skeleton plus. Actually, we had some of the demos were pretty close. And then I would, at least for me, because I have the most flexible, Dave might disagree, but I have the most flexible tones available to me that I can kind of I want to be in this little spot or this spot over here, listening to what everyone else is doing. So there was time for that. Although I don't want to take this long to do another album.
No.
So are you already rehearsed? You've rehearsed the whole album together as a unit?
Pretty close.
Yeah.
We have maybe one song that we haven't really hashed out all the way live.
When was the last time you guys played a show? Do you guys play a lot now that the pandemic is kind of over?
We played one in August, I guess 3 months ago. It was like a semi-outdoor kind of barbecue restaurant themed show.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
And
all the songs were about barbecue, to be clear. Theme.
Yeah, the album barbecue, actually.
And so we haven't been playing a ton in the last year plus, but next year we're setting up a couple of mini tours on the West Coast and the East Coast and up into Canada a little bit.
How is it that Prog is enduring for so long?
I mean, it's a very exciting, and you can go in so many directions with it and still call it prog if you want to.
Well, it's tough. I mean, I'm sure everybody has a different reason that they're, into the music that they're into. So, I mean, I grew up listening to my dad's records of Yes and King Crimson, and I don't know, it's engaging music. It's a music that rewards, intense listening and repeated listening, and it rewards people who kind of listen to music for music's sake instead of just putting it on the background. And I think that for people who are really into that, audio experience of just engaging with a record, it's, I think, one of the most exciting and rewarding styles of music to get into. So that's.
And I think that, like, especially in the past, maybe 20 years or so, there's been a lot of underground subgenres that are very adjacent maybe to what we think of as like more of a classic prog sound, like Yes or King Crimson or something. Like there was in the early 2000s, there was tons of bands playing what was called math rock at the time, right? And so they were playing in odd time signatures, but they weren't necessarily coming from more of a classic rock or place, right? They were coming from maybe the post rock or even punk rock kind of world. And but then like anything, I think like complexity just starts to evolve, right? There's a cat here.
Sorry, we have a cat.
So it's like rather than just repeating things always start to become more complicated. And so you're going to have some subgenres or some like offshoots of bands that are doing more and more kind of interesting things. Some people find it interesting. Some people find it to be complete wankery, right? If you play in odd time signatures or whatever. But I think right now, especially like more technically proficient music is really popular again, maybe for the first time since the 1980s. Like shred guitar is super popular. These guys are there's a lot of a new wave of that happening, and I don't know if that's related to progressive rock so much or not, but it certainly seems like maybe there's some overlap there with people who are wanting to explore new frontiers and get beyond the sort of singer-songwriter kind of thing in terms of their music.
I think that's what I like about prog is it's got no rules.
Yeah, it's like sci-fi, right? Like sci-fi is a genre where you can talk about things that you might get in trouble for in a lot of times in history, right? But if you set it in outer space, then it's like okay to talk about these politics or to criticize religion or whatever, because it's like no, it's a space religion. It's okay, right? And I think prog is a little bit like that. It's like you can go in all these weird directions with it that maybe if things were a little more on the nose, wouldn't be so palatable.
When you make your album, do you feel like there's any, I don't know, expectations in what you make, or are you really just sort of reaching out there, just like, who cares what anyone thinks? We're just going to do this kind of music. How do you approach it?
I would definitely say that we're just making whatever it is that appeals to us most, and especially collectively appeals to all of us, and how far we can take it. And as far as where that fits in with listeners, you just never know, like I feel like our first and second record have a lot of differences between the two because that's where we're at when we made each one.
Yeah, I think we want to make music that we like first, and hopefully other people like it. I mean, I can't remember any conversations about, maybe there were, but I can't remember any about, will other people enjoy this, moment in the song? That's not really the thought process. It's more about, what does the song require out of us, and where does it need to go? And are we happy with the final product? I mean, that's what matters more. And we've been lucky to have other people agree with what we do.
Michael, tell me, are you the one who does all the lyrics?
Mostly. There's one song that John wrote lots of lyrics for on the album, and then I wrote some of the lyrics, so it was like a collaboration on that one. But I guess for the rest of them, I wrote them all.
So what's your process with writing lyrics? Do you have lyrics first and then you write a song around it, or is it the other way around? Or
I would say probably music first. So you have the songs in this band, and sometimes you have entire songs somebody else has written, and they say like, where do you want to put some vocals in this song? And I'm like,
Good luck, buddy.
yeah, and sometimes it's real complicated, and you wonder like what John Anderson thought when they handed him parts of Close to the Edge or something. But it's it's a big growing process, and but I love to like listen to the music and find out where to fit in a vocal line. And honestly, a lot of the songs that these guys come up with have melodies in them, and I totally just rip off the best melody that I can hear and sing it. That's just, I don't know if it's because it's the easiest thing to do or just what feels the best,
are your songs kind of like story songs, or do you sort of latch on to a certain emotion or something? I'm just curious how you approach your song, right? Your lyrics. We'll get to the music too.
I'd say either way. Like there's a lot of sci-fi themes on this album, and then a lot of like personal storytelling tidbits, and sometimes you go back and forth because that's just where that idea muse took me with this music.
What are you doing in the next few months, the next year?
Planning a few short tours. I'm playing a show here in Seattle, and then down in Portland in January, and then doing some more stuff on the West Coast and the East Coast later on in this year. And then I think everybody's itching to write more music. I mean, that's kind of the fun part. I mean, playing is a lot of fun too, but getting to write new material, especially after spending the better part of 3 years on this record, and finally having it out and being excited about that, I think it's really exciting to think about what's next as far as songwriting goes. So I think everybody has a few things kind of ready to start working on, and that's always a fun process. So
are you thinking of writing any 30-minute pieces of song?
Well, we haven't done that yet, so
it's always fun.
we could. I don't know.
It's a little surprising actually how short all the songs on the new record are. I don't know that was totally intentional, but is there like maybe one song over 10 minutes?
Not even.
No.
Not even. Yeah,
One
not even.
song,
Yeah, see, I don't even. Right?
Some people might say some of them are long because
Yeah.
there's 5, 6, and 7-minute songs, but
Yeah.
Yeah, but no 20 minutes songs yet. Although maybe what we'll do is we'll take one of our songs and just play it really slowly.
Yeah, slow it away.
That might get us there. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah,
If we ever do a true ballad.
there you go.
melodically, we have plenty of material on for 2 albums, and think it for the future if you want to take it apart. But so I think that we could stand to repeat a couple of really cool sections, but we are busy moving on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So maybe the next album will just be repetition.
Just one thing over and over
One
again.
thing.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Raga
Yeah.
album.
Probably not.
Are you guys near each other in Seattle, or?
Yeah, pretty close. I mean, no
Yeah.
one's more than 20 minutes away from anybody else driving distance.
About that.
Yeah.
Yeah, without traffic.
Yeah, well,
Are you guys all from Seattle?
you're the only one who is.
Yeah, I'm from, so there you go.
Yeah. No,
Bellingham,
Buffalo, New York.
Buffalo,
Oh,
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma
whole
City.
state.
The whole
The
state.
whole state. Yeah.
Kelly's from
Kelly's from
I don't-
Detroit.
There you go.
Detroit
Yeah.
area, yeah.
Yeah.
being a Canadian, of course, Rush is like one of my, they're my heroes. I love Rush so much. You guys all Rush fans, or?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Everybody, tell me your favorite top 3 prog bands.
Oh
Oh,
boy.
Not possible.
yeah. I'm not good on
It's hard.
favorites.
It ebbs and flows depending on the day, I guess.
That's a good point. At different times of your life, it's different bands, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, there are definitely some that I feel like probably stick out more than others. Like I've always been a massive King Crimson fan. Crimson was a hugely impactful band on me when I was in college, and so I was studying classically in college, which you know, and I was playing a lot of jazz music, and King Crimson was kind of this other thing that I got really into that kind of took some of those elements and also did something completely different. So I guess that's a big one for me. But yeah, it's too hard to pick out favorites. Favorites are tough.
I could say like maybe not like the all-time favorites or whatever, but the ones that sort of like ensnared me into loving prog in the first place. And so I was in high school and my friends would make me cassettes with all these different prog songs on them, and I could not fathom it all. It was just like, it was like painful for me to listen to because I just couldn't like pinpoint what was going on at every point. And I like moved out of town. I was staying with a friend, and I ended up with this cassette of the very first ever Genesis album. You know, the From Genesis to Revelations. It's like folk music. And I loved it so much, and I love Peter Gabriel's voice so much that like suddenly I had to listen to like every Genesis album from there because of the album that most Genesis fans hate. So, the other thing was when I was like 18, I wandered into a record shop, and I would always like pick out whatever like cover looked the best. And I thought the cover of the second King Crimson album looked the best. You know, it's like the kings and the jesters, and so I was rewarded for judging
Devil's Triangle
album
Still
by the
pick
cover.
music like that.
Yeah. So,
Covers are important.
yeah.
Which hopefully our cover is attractive to you. Do you like the cover?
Oh, I think it's awesome. Tell me a little about the cover.
We were looking for a direction, and we ended up with a
Linear collage.
yeah, we found some collage artists that were making some really cool stuff that had to do with space, and that kind of spoke. You know, we had gone through so many different ideas. When you know, when you have 5 people trying to be creative together, it's one thing when you're all writing songs, everybody has their kind of inputs, but when you have to just pick one thing, like what's the cover of the record going to be? That's not easy to do when you're trying to do it democratically. You know, it's 5 people have to agree on something. So we went through a lot of ideas, came close to agreeing on a few, and then this kind of idea of this collage art with this kind of space theme, this kind of futurism theme was just kind of clicked with everybody, I think, and it made sense for the themes of the record, the title. And from there, it was just figuring out, you know, finding an artist that we wanted to work with and had some stuff that we liked, and went from there.
Yeah. The artist is from Argentina, and so it all worked. And we licensed it for the album. It all worked great.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, cool. Argentina. You know, there's some good prog that came out of Argentina, you know.
I'm curious what stood out to you in the album, either song wise or something unexpected that you ended up liking.
Just super original. Like, I mean, I listen to so much prog now, and your band really struck me as really truly collaborative. It sounded really unique. Yeah, which is hard to do, I think, because I can sort of hear the influences, you know, from classic prog and whatnot, but at the same time, what you are stands out. It's very cohesive. There is a sense of humor too. Like I was going to ask you a little bit about that. Maybe it's a little like Frank Zappa or something, you know, this sort of irony or something in the music, where in a sense you don't take yourself too seriously, which I think some prog can take itself too seriously, and that I think it weighs against some bands. You know, when they do something, you can just tell it's too serious.
We even had to cut out a couple of silly spots, so it was like we had to trim the silliness a little bit. We got it just right. Like the fireworks in the crowds.
Oh yeah, a lot of clown sounds.
An entire circus,
shoes, you know, it's like you gotta get rid of it.
Well, I think it's really, I agree. I think it's really important that you don't take yourself too seriously, that you don't get too swallowed up in what you're doing. I mean, it should be fun. I mean, but my favorite music, whether it's prog or jazz or classical or classic rock or whatever, there's an element of you know, fun to it. Like I think that's important in anything you listen to. You know, you kind of want to picture, like, I like seeing musicians enjoy themselves on stage. like when they play. That's a big thing for me. I go to a show, and if everybody's smiling and, you know, laughing and having a good time, like, it elevates my experience as a listener and as somebody watching them play. So if you can impart some of that kind of good-natured fun and humor through the music that you play, I think that's you're on the right track.
I'm just going to play next song like this.
Yeah,
though.
we'll do the cousin Hick thing with the.
We already do that.
Oh, no. That's right.
You each have an assigned instrument, more or less, right, in the band. You don't really swap or anything like that, or do you do other instruments? For example, you get into guitar and then you get into some mandolin, or does somebody get into keyboards and then plays some percussion or something?
Well, we did get to do a lot of really fun percussion on this record. That was a lot of fun. We kind of got together. You know, Kelly did all the drumming and a lot of the percussion, but Michael had a huge, you know, lots of great ideas for percussion, and he has a bunch of percussion instruments, and that was just a total blast to get together. And we actually had a couple of sessions where all we did was just percussion, and that was super fun. Dave plays a shovel on the album and a toolbox. Yep. Pretty cool.
Went to school for 17 years
Yeah.
for the toolbox
Yeah.
of lessons.
It's I mean, people think it's easy, but
Yeah.
it's all about
Yeah.
wrist technique and stuff.
Really.
So it's important stuff. But no, we all basically stay to our instruments.
What sparked you to take your instruments?
That's a good question. Take
Dave.
that? Anybody?
I mean, I feel like I always want to have really cool answers, but like for me, it's always like Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page, Tony Iommi, David Gilmour, and then, you know, when I got a little older, like John McLaughlin, and, you know, just like the people who are at the top of the mountain for a reason, mostly the classic rock guitar players, and I was just obsessed with all of them growing up, and yeah, so that's the gift that keeps on giving, listening to those guys play.
Yeah, I remember listening to it must have been Peter Gabriel's So album, and really noticing Tony Levin's bass playing, like, in a way that I hadn't noticed bass playing before. You know, like, really, like, holy cow, that's so cool. At a time, I think I had like a Pandora where you could like put in an artist's name and it would match you with similar stuff. And I found Tony Levin's solo record Resonator, which, you know, it's an amazing record. It's so good. But some of the bass work on that album is like, holy cow, this is so freaking cool. I just thought it was one of the coolest, unique, you know, sounding instruments out there, and it was really interesting. And then from there, I found Victor Wooten pretty quickly, and it was just a downhill slide into all the bass greats. Didn't take long to get obsessed, you know, Jocko and all them.
For me, I picked keys. So my dad was in a prog band. Parents divorced, so there was this organ in the garage. I don't even know. It only partially worked, but I dinked around on that, and then Dad played guitar, and so I kind of took just piano organ because, you know, it fit in with what I could play with Dad. And then because of his prog band, I was exposed. He was mostly in a cover band, which in Oklahoma, a prog cover band was not very popular. But anyway, so, you know, Keith Emerson, Rick Wakeman, classic peeps that are really, you know, I only aspire to like play to their level. They're pretty dang awesome.
And how about singing?
Yeah, I've had a lot of time to think about it, listening to you guys. No, I mean, like, which is good. It's like when you get to order last at the restaurant. But yeah, I was just thinking, like, I feel like maybe in high school or something, I would go to the library a lot and just like check out CDs and take out 3 and take out another 3. And for some reason, I remember they had a lot of Peter Gabriel there, which I think I must have liked him before I really knew about Genesis, which is kind of the backwards way, you know, but considering like my age. But I would listen to his like Passion of the Christ, which obviously is not like him singing songs. But I really liked his songs. And then I also really just have to say, like, I really love like Tori Amos as a vocalist a lot, which later on I feel like she got a lot from Kate Bush. And so I'd have to say Kate Bush. And yeah, there's just, you know, there's a lot of great singers to aspire to, and especially there's so many outside of the prog genre that are, you know, in the pop or folk world as well that I'm super into.
And since Kelly is not here, anyone want to speak in his behalf? You know what kind of drummers he really idolizes or loves?
Yeah, he's like a real kind of underground spastic punk. So he would have been, he's really into Boredoms from Japan. Do you know that band?
No.
It's like Japanese noise rock. They go way back. They have a million albums. I feel like maybe No Means No or something like that.
I know he likes Muse a lot.
Muse?
The band Muse.
Yeah, he's really into Ween.
Yeah,
Right.
Oh yeah, right.
Queen fan.
Yeah.
And hip hop.
And
as
hip
well.
hop. Yeah.
Lots of
Lots of hip hop influence.
And then I want to mention a band that like we get in a lot of the reviews, they will name all these bands that the reviewers think we're influenced by or maybe that we sound like. And it's really interesting that many times we've never heard of any of those bands. But one band
some,
that never has been mentioned, I think, maybe not for the whole band, but I know in every song that I write for this band, and Michael and I have talked about it a lot, is early Scorpions. So like before Rock You Like a Hurricane, all that, they had this guy named Uli John Roth in the band. And they made some records that are like, I wouldn't say they're proggy, but there's some like kind of epic 70s rock, and they go in a lot more different directions, a little more neoclassical influence and things like that. And there's a lot of moments, I think, where maybe we've talked a little bit about trying to touch on the feeling that they're able to get in that era, like kind of early 70s, mid 70s Scorpions. And so I just wanted to put that out there. Something to listen for. It's like
I probably messed that all up,
Yeah.
right? When I played something.
No.
no.
But there's definitely a few reviews that we've gotten where I felt like one reviewer really hit it on the head when they said like there's a lot of different prog bands, and he said that we kind of sounded like a rock band that was playing prog, you know, whereas like there's a lot of like very conceptual, cerebral kind of progressive rock groups out there that are great, and that's kind of like where they're coming from, but that we were like a little bit gritty and live as a starting point. That's
Well, thank you so much, guys. We've got a minute and a half before Zoom cuts me off here, but that was good length. I thought that was a great little interview, and appreciated being able to talk to you over Zoom. And actually, we're not that far away from each other. Actually, I could probably hop in a car right now and be down there in 3 hours or something and take that ferry. Have you ever been up to Vancouver Island, any of you? Yeah.
I have.
a couple times. Yeah.
Cool. It's great up here. Thank you so much for this interview, and I'm sure we'll talk again at some future time again, and we'll keep in touch. And I wish you all the best, and I'm going to be enjoying your album a lot more. So I appreciate your album and your music, and all the best to you.
Cool.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.